My wife and mother of three is cheating on me and she thinks I don't know anything. I have been married to my wife for 9 years and together, we have been building our lives for a total of 11 years. We are both Europeans, though we hail from different countries with unique cultures and traditions. For the past decade, we have been living in Asia, adapting to a new environment and building a life far from our home countries. Specifically, we have resided in our current country for the last 8 years, creating a sense of stability and routine for ourselves and our family. We have 3 children who are the center of our world. Our eldest son is 8 years old, our middle child, another son, is 6, and our youngest, a beautiful daughter, is 3. Since the birth of our first son, my wife has chosen not to work, dedicating her time and energy to raising our children and managing our household. It is a dynamic we agreed upon early in our marriage, and it has worked well for us, or so I thought. As a permanent resident of the country we currently live in, I have ensured that my family is legally able to stay with me. Though they are not citizens, the law permits them to remain here under my residency. This arrangement has provided a sense of security and continuity in our lives. My wife, although not employed, has always been an integral part of the family unit, ensuring that our home runs smoothly and our children are cared for. From my perspective, our marriage has been good, if not perfect. Every marriage has its ups and downs, and we've had our share of arguments over the years. However, none of these disagreements felt significant enough to shake the foundation of our relationship. My work schedule is fairly standard. I work 5 days a week from 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. This allows us plenty of time together as a family, or so I believe. My wife never expressed feelings of loneliness, boredom, or a lack of love. She seemed content, immersed in her daily routine, dropping the kids off at school, picking them up, preparing meals, and spending time with me in the evening. Weekends were reserved for family outings, vacations, and occasional date nights. From my vantage point, there were no warning signs of unhappiness or dissatisfaction in her life. We have always had an open phone policy in our marriage, a concept meant to build trust and transparency. But in truth, I can barely recall ever looking at her phone. I doubt I've touched it more than 5 times in our entire marriage. There simply never seemed to be a need. I trusted her implicitly. Then came Wednesday, the day that shattered my perception of our life together. I came home from work as usual, parking my car outside our house. As I entered, I overheard her speaking to someone on the phone. Her tone was soft, filled with longing, as she said she missed the person and couldn't wait to see them later in the week. Her words struck me like a bolt of lightning. It was such an intimate conversation, unlike anything I had ever heard her say to me. The moment she noticed my presence, or perhaps my car in the driveway, she ended the call abruptly, as though caught in the act. I asked her casually who she was speaking with, trying to mask my sudden unease. She told me it was a friend who was currently traveling. To her credit, this explanation made sense. I knew this particular friend was indeed away, yet something felt off. Her demeanor that day was overly cheerful, almost exaggerated. She was always a kind and positive person, but her behavior that evening was so heightened that it unsettled me. I told myself I was overthinking it, likely imagining things that weren't there. The next day, Thursday, the nagging feeling persisted. I went to work but couldn't concentrate. My mind kept replaying the scene from the previous day. Why had she hung up so quickly when I entered the house? Was it really her friend she was speaking to? During a break at work, I called her. When she answered, I could hear background noise that didn't align with her claim of being at home. It was then that the suspicion took root in my mind, an unwelcome thought that grew louder with each passing moment. Is she cheating on me? Unable to shake the feeling, I left work early, something I rarely do, and drove straight home. The 30-minute drive felt interminable. When I arrived, the house was empty. I called her again, this time trying to sound casual, asking her to check on a few things around the house. She pretended to do so, speaking as though she were physically present at home. My heart sank. I knew then, with a dreadful certainty, that she was lying. That evening, she returned home as though everything was normal. She was warm and affectionate, suggesting we take the kids out together. Despite the turmoil inside me, I remained calm, pretending to be tired from work. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed evidence, something concrete to support my suspicion. Later that night, I confided in my best friend, sharing my fears and the events of the past 2 days. He urged me to confront her immediately, but I explained that I couldn't act without proof. My plan was to check her phone and laptop once she went to sleep. That night, after she had fallen asleep, I did exactly that. My hands trembled as I opened her phone. To my astonishment, she hadn't deleted her messages, though they were hidden in a way that suggested she thought I wouldn't find them. I had about 30 minutes before she stirred, and in that short time I uncovered enough to confirm my worst fears. The man she had been communicating with was significantly younger than me, likely in his mid-20s, around 23 to 27 years old. His Instagram profile painted a picture of a self-absorbed playboy. He was European, like us, but appeared to live a lavish, carefree lifestyle, flaunting tattoos, expensive cars, and a penchant for partying. He was undeniably attractive, the kind of man who could easily turn heads, and he seemed to revel in the attention. Their affair had been physical, at least 4 or 5 times. She had sent him countless explicit photos, mostly taken in the mornings when she was alone at home. Their conversations revealed that this had been going on for about a month. It appeared they had met during one of her so-called girls' nights. She had been the one initiating most of their interactions, seemingly eager to secure his attention and affection. The messages painted a devastating picture of a woman who had risked everything, her marriage, her family, for a man who appeared indifferent at best. I was devastated but resolved. The next day, I went through the motions, interacting with her as though nothing had changed. Inside, I was a storm of emotions: anger, betrayal, heartbreak. That evening, I showed everything I had discovered to my best friend. He was furious on my behalf, urging me to take immediate action, but I couldn't. Not yet. My love for my children and the complexity of our lives in a foreign country demanded careful planning. I knew I needed legal advice, and I resolved to contact a lawyer the following day, even though it was Sunday. First of all, I want to address something that has been weighing heavily on me. Since opening up about my situation, I've read countless comments, and while many of you have offered support or sound advice, some of the responses have been outright absurd. It's as if some people are projecting their own assumptions or imagined scenarios onto my life. Let me be very clear. I have never said I want my wife to leave the country we are living in. If there is anyone in the world who wants her to stay, it is me. Why? Because if she stays, then my children stay. That's my priority above all else. I'm prepared to offer her the best possible deal that will allow her to remain here, but that deal includes divorce. If she rejects it, then we will fight for custody in court. Let me make this crystal clear. I am not responsible for her future. I didn't cause this mess. I didn't make the choices that led to the destruction of our marriage. Some of you have suggested I should uproot my life, return to Europe, and essentially abandon everything I've built over the last decade, so I can see my kids a few days a week. Why? Because I'm the father? And she's the cheating mother? That logic doesn't hold. Others have gone so far as to suggest I should stay married to her so she can continue living here comfortably, that I should sacrifice my happiness and endure a lifetime of betrayal so she doesn't face the consequences of her actions. Really? Because she couldn't keep her legs closed, I'm supposed to suffer? Brilliant logic. Let's address another point. Some of you claim she sacrificed her career for the family, as though that absolves her of everything. This narrative doesn't apply here. She didn't give up a promising career for me or our kids. She simply never pursued one. I offered her the option to work and even suggested hiring a nanny to help with the children if she wanted to focus on a career. She declined. It wasn't a sacrifice. It was her choice. And for those who believe I'm forcing her out of the country, understand this. I am not. Immigration laws will determine her status if we divorce. She is here legally because of, and that's the reality of living in a foreign country. If she wants to stay, she will need to find a way to do so independently. My children don't know her home country. They've never lived there. They don't speak the language, don't have friends there, and their entire world is rooted here. Uprooting them would be cruel, unnecessary, and detrimental to their well-being. My focus is on what's best for them, and that means keeping them here, where their lives are stable and familiar. I've already spoken to my lawyer, and I'm willing to make reasonable concessions. She can stay in the house and keep the car, provided I retain primary custody of the children. Alternatively, I can keep the house and help her secure a place to live, with shared custody, but I will not agree to any arrangement that involves the children leaving this country. Yesterday, I had a long discussion with my lawyer. We reviewed the legal process for divorce in this country and the implications of pursuing it in the country where we were married. Both lawyers agreed I am in a strong position. The lawyer here emphasized that the court would prioritize the children's well-being, and given their deep roots in this country, school, friends, and community, it's highly unlikely they would be allowed to relocate. My financial stability, residency status, and ability to provide for them only strengthen my case. We are preparing a comprehensive case. My lawyer has gathered documentation proving my residency, financial stability, and the children's current living conditions. We've even considered the possibility of her appealing the decision in her home country. While such a process could take years, I have options to delay it further, ensuring that the children remain here during the proceedings. When I returned home after work, my wife was waiting for me with the kids. On the surface, everything appeared normal. She greeted me with a smile, and we went out as a family that evening. I focused on enjoying time with the children, but every moment spent near her felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. That night, she tried to initiate intimacy, but I politely declined, claiming exhaustion. She laughed and reminisced about happy memories from our past, as though she were living in an alternate reality. The next morning, after she dropped the kids off at school, I quietly packed my belongings. I took my important documents, some clothes, and left. Throughout the day, she texted me as though nothing was wrong, suggesting plans for the evening. I played along, not wanting to tip her off prematurely. At 4:05 p.m., I sent her a message that would change everything. The funniest thing with all the evidence I have, I still can't believe this is reality. 11 years. I want to tell you so many things right now, but I am so disgusted by you that I just want this to end as soon as possible. You made your choice, and now I am making mine. You can stay tonight. Tomorrow, after the kids leave for school, I want you out of my house. Don't try anything stupid with the kids, or you will have bigger problems. I am ready for every scenario. My lawyers are ready. Be normal, and we can end this in the most normal way possible. Anything else will only put you in a worse position. At the end of the day, I can't say I wish you all the best, but if your best is away from me, then I wish you all the best. Don't call me, and don't do something stupid, because I won't tolerate it. My lawyer will contact you about the kids immediately when you leave my house. You can meet and be with them every day, but you are not allowed to enter my property again after everything you've done. P.S. You look good in those nude pictures you sent to your AP. Her response was silence. For 20 minutes, she didn't call or message. Then, I called the AP. After a few tries, he picked up, and I arranged to meet him in a neutral location. Meeting the AP was surreal. He looked nervous but cooperative. He confessed to everything, even providing screenshots of their conversations. He revealed that my wife had lied to him, claiming I had cheated first. He expressed regret and even handed over evidence that would strengthen my case. While we spoke, my wife began calling him, leaving desperate voice messages accusing him of ruining her life. Her anguish was palpable, but her words revealed the depth of her deception. Tomorrow, I will confront her face to face after ensuring the children are at school. The road ahead is daunting, but I am determined to protect my children and rebuild from this betrayal. The morning began with a surreal stillness. I sat in my hotel room, staring blankly at the walls as I tried to gather my thoughts. The confrontation I had spent days preparing for was only hours away. The messages, the lies, the betrayal, it all felt like a storm that had torn through my life, leaving me disoriented and broken. But there was no room for hesitation. This wasn't just about me. It was about my children and the life we had built. I left the hotel early and drove to the house. The drive was eerily familiar, yet felt entirely alien. This was the home where I had envisioned spending the rest of my life with the woman I loved. Now it was a battleground, a place where the truth would finally be laid bare. When I arrived, the kids were already at school and kindergarten. The house was quiet, except for the faint sound of my wife moving about upstairs. I walked in and called her name, my voice steady but laced with resolve. She came down, a look of confusion and fear flickering across her face. She must have known this moment was inevitable. I told her to sit down, and without raising my voice, I began. I laid everything out. The messages, the recordings, the meeting with her affair partner. Her face went pale as I spoke, her hands trembling as she clutched at the edge of the couch. I didn't yell, didn't lash out. I simply let the weight of her actions hang in the air between us. I know everything, I said, my voice firm but calm, and I can't believe it took me this long to see it. She tried to speak, stumbling over her words, but I held up a hand to stop her. Don't deny it. Don't insult me further by trying to twist this into something it isn't. You lied to me, to our children, to yourself. For what? A man you didn't even love? A moment of attention that wasn't worth the destruction it caused? Tears streamed down her face as she begged for forgiveness. I was stupid, she said, her voice cracking. I didn't think. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't know what I was doing. Please, let's work this out. I love you. I love our family. I shook my head, the weight of her words hitting hollow. You love me. You love our family. You don't destroy what you love. You don't lie and cheat and then try to justify it with excuses. Love is about respect, about trust. You've shattered both. She dropped to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably, but I didn't move to comfort her. I couldn't. My heart felt like it had been ripped out of my chest, but I couldn't let her tears manipulate me into forgetting the betrayal. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about protecting the future of my children and myself. I outlined my terms. She could stay in the house temporarily for the sake of the children, but we were done. The divorce would proceed, and I would retain primary custody. I reminded her that my lawyer was already preparing everything, and that she could either cooperate or make things harder for herself. Her initial sobs turned to panic as she realized the gravity of the situation. What about the kids? She cried. What about us? They need both of us together. They need stability, I countered. And stability isn't living in a home built on lies. I'll never keep you from seeing them, but I won't let you uproot them from the life they know. I left her there, broken and pleading, and headed straight to the DNA testing clinic. The thought of questioning the paternity of my children had felt absurd just a week ago, but now it seemed necessary. I prayed silently that this would be one betrayal I wouldn't have to endure. The testing process was clinical and cold, a stark contrast to the emotional chaos I was experiencing. The results would take a few days, and I braced myself for what might come. In the days that followed, my wife tried everything. Apologies, promises, and even attempts to rekindle what we once had, but I stayed firm. The betrayal was too great, and there was no going back. I told her to focus on being a mother to our children and figuring out how she wanted to move forward with her life. When the DNA results came back, I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Relief washed over me as I saw the confirmation. All 3 children were mine. It was a small victory in an otherwise devastating situation, but it gave me the strength to keep moving forward. The divorce proceedings began, and true to her word, my wife didn't fight the custody arrangement. Perhaps she knew deep down that there was no winning this battle. I made sure she would have the resources to stay in the country for the children's sake, but I made it clear that our marriage was over. Months passed, and the dust began to settle. The house felt emptier without her, but in some ways, it also felt lighter. I focused on my children, pouring all my energy into giving them the stability and love they deserve. They were my anchor, the reason I was able to keep going. As for my wife, she remained a part of the children's lives, but the distance between us was irreparable. She seemed remorseful, but remorse doesn't undo the damage. I still carried the scars of her betrayal, but I refused to let them define me. Life moved on, slowly but surely. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but each day brought a little more clarity, a little more peace. And while I'll never forget what happened, I've learned to live with it. My story isn't one of complete resolution or triumph, but it's one of survival. And for now, that's enough.